And thank you for joining us for today's episode of For All Humans. I'm sure we're all well acquainted with the phrase sex sells. Well, today we're going to be talking about a very specific industry that relies exclusively on the notion that sex sells: pornography. So what is it? What is porn? Pornography is derived from two words of origin, namely from the Greek porni, meaning prostitute, and graphian, meaning expression. The legal term refers to it as obscenity. Others define it as art. Whatever you think of it, the topic has been hotly debated since the beginning of its inception. Back in the 1970s, second-wave feminism claimed that porn is violence against women. Robin Morgan, an author, activist, and political theorist, even said, "Pornography is the theory, rape is the practice." The thought process is that pornography caters to men's power fantasies, robbing women of rights and self-actualization, and encouraging violence against women. What's worse, in the article Pornography and Pop Culture, Backlash and a Feminism That is Contrary to Feminism, Carla Mantilla paraphrases the arguments of Dr. Rebecca Wisnant when she claims that there arose a feminism in which women say they are empowered by reclaiming their own sexual objectification or sexual use exploration. However, she explains that when people are confronted with an oppressive situation, an adaptation can be made to find a way to get themselves to want what is readily available or out of their power to change, and to not want what is near impossible to get. This accommodation is called adaptive preferences. In reality, according to Wisnant, women who have embraced a culture of pornography have just sold themselves into ownership of a different kind. They've become submissive to a consumer culture that will use their bodies and convince them that that's what they wanted all along. Enter third wave feminism, which asks the question, what if it's not adaptive preferences at all? Tracy Adlis published an article in the journal Agenda, Empowering Women for Gender Equity, where she pointed out that the patriarchy told us what was erotic and feminism told us what wasn't. When put like this, to say women who like porn are merely brainwashed is just subjugating them to a third power, that of radical feminism. Third wave feminism argues that individual choice and free will cannot be overridden by any group, no matter what. If a woman chooses to remain submissive to father and husband, no one has the right to invalidate that choice any more than if she chooses to participate in pornography. Thus, feminist porn came into existence. However, feminist porn has a fatal flaw. It's still porn. Porn is known for creating unrealistic expectations of women's bodies, which results in a great deal of disillusioned men, broken relationships, and women suffering from self-esteem issues. Furthermore, while some claim porn has positive effects such as stress relief and a greater sense of self-awareness, others argue that porn is addictive, that it ruins relationships, and that it causes penile desensitivity and erectile dysfunction. But does it? Dr. David J. Lee, in his article Common Sense about the effects of pornography, says that all of these negative arguments are bunk, largely related to fear and preconceived notions of gender and sex. He also says that greater social access to pornography actually correlates with a decrease in sex crimes in research that has been replicated around the world. However, according to a review with clinical reports by Brian E. Park et al., many studies have found correlation, if not causation, between the heavy use of internet porn and these negative effects, particularly those relating to men being unable to ejaculate or alarmingly finding that they are no longer sexually attracted to their significant other. And we wonder why women have body issues. We'll get into more details about the consequences of porn in just a minute. But first, how prevalent is porn anyway? According to various reports, pornography worldwide has hit a net worth of $97 billion. That's enough to feed more than 4.8 billion people a day. The United States is the world's largest producer of that figure, making 25% of the content. 60% of all online porn features Western performers, and the consumers? where in the United States, 87% of college-aged men and above and 41% of women view pornography, with half of all internet traffic relating to sex. Based on these statistics, everyone on the planet has watched at least one explicitly sexual scene in their lifetime. Thanks to the advent of the smartphone, the consumption of pornography has drastically changed in the last 20 years, from one where you had to secretly sneak into adult book and video stores or mail order pornographic content, to one where you can just click a button on your screen in the privacy of your own dark bedroom. This ease of access has led to a significant jump in consumption, attracting a wider audience and thus an increase in the negative side effects. These numbers demonstrate that pornography is no longer a concern for a mere subgroup of people, but a mass phenomenon that impacts our whole society. The conversation about sexually explicit material has always been hotly debated on grounds of religion or morals, trivializing the objections to the sex industry and not taking into account the social and biological effects of pornography. So here, we'll break it down with some hot, sizzling facts. According to a Swedish study carried out with adolescent boys, daily consumption of porn increases interest in illegal types of pornography. They also habitually stated their wish to actualize what was seen in real life, which may explain why research has also shown that pornography has contributed to occurrences of sexual intercourse without sufficient knowledge of its consequences of pregnancy and STDs. Furthermore, a study conducted in Italy has found the phenomenon of sexual anorexia among young pornography viewers, or the pathological loss of appetite for romantic sexual interactions. This is due to their sexuality developing in a way that is largely divorced from real-life relationships. Carlo Foresta, head of the Italian Society of Andrology and Sexual Medicine, says the effects are gradual but devastating. It starts with lower reaction to porn sites, then there is a general drop in libido, and in the end it becomes impossible to get an erection. Also associated with frequent internet pornography viewing at any age is a decrease in sexual satisfaction and a propensity to adopt pornographic scripts to one's sex life. In fact, as evidenced by research by Edward Dornestein and Neil Malamuth, men become desensitized by seeing porn, especially the violent type, and then crave more and more violent porn in order to get their sexual kicks. In fact, Malamuth, a social psychologist, has found that mentally healthy men exposed to hardcore violent pornography say, in significant numbers might I add, that they would rape if they thought they could get away with it. That is incredibly disturbing, to say the least. What's more, porn mirrors stereotypical myths of women and children in child pornography as being sexually subservient to their male counterparts. Big Think Report's research has concluded that mainstream pornography promotes and perpetuates many unrealistic expectations regarding women's orgasm and male sexual performance. In a civilized world as ours, wouldn't we be more inclined to adopt a philosophy closer to that of the Prophet of Islam? An honourable man treats women with honour and respect, and only a despicable person treats women poorly. But let's not get into religion just yet. We still need to talk about the worst part of pornography, and that's its addictive nature and what it does to our brains. Watching porn allows us to be engulfed in a fantasy that arouses us, triggering the dopaminergic system, just as it does with cocaine and other addictive substances and behaviours. Images from the screen trigger a chemical reaction in the brain, releasing dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter which serves in functions like motivation, reward, learning, and punishment. Dopamine can be released either before or during the moments of heightened pleasure, strengthening and then reinforcing the new connections that are being made while viewing sexually explicit content. That encourages the individual to repeat the activity so that they can feel that pleasure again and again. And instead of going into short-term memory, where the pornographic images can be disregarded after the screen is turned off, the dopamine reinforcement moves them into the long-term memory, storing them where they can be conjured up at any time. And the more something is recalled, the more it solidifies in the brain, just like when you study for a test, you repeat the information back to yourself to memorize it. In addition to that, different sexual scenes with different women gives the watcher the illusion of having a relationship with a new person every time, making it exciting every time. And this is called the Coolidge effect. It's a biological occurrence in animals, mostly in males, where individuals show renewed sexual interest whenever there is an introduction of a new willing partner, even after cessation of sex. So it reduces sexual desire for the same partner over time. Pornography's power comes from tricking the lower brain into thinking that the images seen are reality, offering potentially unlimited willing partners. Once pornography is stopped, the brain discontinues releasing dopamine, resulting in a dip below the baseline levels, going into a depression response. This leads to disappointment, dissatisfaction, and an itch to get back on the computer for more porn. Hence, the vicious cycle continues, which explains a longitudinal study following internet users, which has found that accessing pornography online was predictive of compulsive computer use after just 1 year. So with a porn addiction comes a computer addiction. And wait, there's more. Pair bonding. A correlation is seen between viewing porn and participating in the same acts seen in the films. Borg and Hernandez reported an 85% correlation between viewing child pornography and participating in actual sexual relations with children. And a meta-analysis by Held et al. Strongly supports previous data which demonstrates a connection with porn and violence against women. So it makes sense then that studies have shown pornography to also have an ability to diminish the quality and stability of romantic relationships, leading to greater chances of infidelity and a higher probability of divorce. It's also been shown to negatively impact parents' relationships with their children, as concluded by an article entitled Pornography, Religion and Parent-Child Relationship Quality. With all the unpleasant consequences of pornography, is it any wonder that most religions do not condone it, and in fact condemn its consumption outright? And what does Islam say about this topic? While Islam doesn't go out of its way to specifically mention pornography, it does forbid it, as it forbids everything that delivers to wrongdoing, as if itself is wrongdoing. As Sheikh Mohammed Al-Ghazali puts it, if we've agreed that TB is a disease, surely we will not quarrel about the causes of transmission. Similarly, if we have agreed that adultery is a heinous act, we will certainly not be at odds on the prevention of all forms that show off the private parts and propaganda to the person, which would cause the adultery. The Quran, chapter 24, verses 30 to 31 reads, "Tell the believing men to guard their gaze and guard their private parts. That is purer for them. Indeed, Allah is acquainted with what they do. And tell the believing women to guard and guard their private parts." The Quran, verse chapter 16, verse 90 also says, "Indeed, Allah orders justice and good conduct and giving to relatives and forbids immorality and bad conduct and oppression." The acts categorized under immorality, bad conduct and oppression include hurling abuse and curse words, promiscuous mixing, fornication and adultery, nudity, public foreplay, etc., as depicted in films and photographs, or exposing one's body. Pornography has all of the above. In Islam, pornography is viewed as a transgression against God, as well as human beings and animals, because it violates the rights of women and children, turning them into sex objects to be consumed. So the Quran goes on to say, "Say to them, O Muhammad, do not even draw near to things shameful, be they open or secret." But whether or not you believe pornography to be immoral, the evidence is clear that its consumption is just not good for our mental and physical well-being, and it takes us away from adopting ideas of love, of compassion and mutuality for one another. As the Quran says, the believing men and believing women are allies of one another. We hope you enjoyed this episode, so let us know what you think in the comments section. Meanwhile, share this with your friends and stay tuned for the next one.